Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Benjamin, and Jesus fuck. By the way, just to let you know, this is from the first debate, not the one that just concluded. I can't find the live stream for whatever bullshit reason. I actually watched it on my television because I actually wanted to hear, not have these stupid headphones on. So that's why you're seeing an old one, and I took a fuck ton of notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then the 10th page was, well, it was the verbal equivalent of of honestly what I need after that debate. So, bottoms up. All right. Now, back to your regularly scheduled commentary. uh, so, pretty early on, they started with a debate on healthcare after opening statements. And there was actually some disagreement for once. I was thrilled. Bernie took a few shots, especially with Hickenlooper going, "Okay, Bernie, go ahead and throw your arms up. It's the 1%. It's the 1%. Oh no, I'm so old, I'm gonna have a heart attack. That's why I'm calling for nationalized health care. Medicare for all." And people like Delaney criticizing Bernie Sanders' math and the problems of Medicare for all, especially considering this debate was taking place in Detroit, which has a massive union force in the auto industry and among other places, which, whatever, okay? People can unionize if they want. I'm not here to tell them they can't, okay? But there were a few good points brought up about it, in that a Sanders-style plan of Medicare for all, where you get rid of private health insurance, these union reps have spent a ton of time, a ton of effort, and put good union dues into getting solid health insurance plans for their employees and for the people they represent, that to all of a sudden say, "So, we want you to vote for us, and then we're going to go ahead and take away your private health insurance that you actually like, that is very good, and replace it with a government program that's kind of half-assed, if we're honest." Because that's exactly what Medicare is. And somebody actually brought it up. Because a lot of these Medicare for all plans, these nationalized health insurance plans, the point there is that they would require premiums to remain the same as that for Medicare, rather than whatever, hospitals have agreed on with the insurance agency, which then deals with the individuals or the business or the proprietor. And just as I'm not going to get into what I do, but I'm going to state that it is in the insurance field, and I actually kind of know what the hell I'm talking about on this issue. I'm actually, understand the insurance agents, insurance field, specifically health and life. So, yeah, hospitals would be fucked. I'm going to exit out of this as soon as I can. But no, businesses would be completely fucked. And sorry, YouTube, if you're complaining about my, profanity, but it's warranted. Hospitals would be so fucked if they had to accept Medicare insurance premiums for everyone, that they would go out of business. I think John Delaney even brought that up in that little exchange. Of course, Tim Ryan went after Sanders. So did Hickenlooper, a bunch of other people. The next topic they went on to was immigration, which is basically most of them were talking about amnesty, or what would effectively become amnesty. And it may have been a bit too much, but whatever. No one's counting. Trust me, that is normally in the cabinet. Anyway, it's my channel. I'm allowed to do that. Okay, so basically, amnesty and welfare for those who cross the border and set up residence in the United States without going through the proper channels, establishing paperwork, and all that stuff. Now, I'm not going to go into things, but, you know, I have zero problems with immigration, just for the record. As a matter of fact, I highly encourage people, come to the United States. We want you here. Just please, for the love of God, you know, respect the people who are waiting in line and doing things through the proper channels and following the laws that this nation has set forth on how to immigrate. If you do that, I could care less whether you're white, black, Asian, you know, a Pole, a Kraut, a Lithuanian, a Finn. I don't care. Venezuelan. You know, if you establish the proper relations through paperwork, please come over here, and especially bring your food. I'm not just saying that because I enjoy food. No, I actually really... There's only one real type of American cuisine I like, and that's Southern comfort food. You know, we're talking barbecue, fried chicken, ham hocks, pickled eggs, pickled pig's feet, chitlins, cracklins, you know, that type of stuff. But otherwise, I'd much prefer to eat some other culture's food because it's actually probably better. You know, we're talking, you know, kafta from the Middle East, falafel, you know, say what you will, but kebabs taste amazing. If we want to talk about from Europe, we've got Polish food, you know, and Germans, you know, if there's a way to cook a pig, the Germans have figured it out. But no, you've got kishka, you've got kielbasa. If you go to the Germans, all the wursts, and just amazing food. Schnitzel, Jägerwurst, etc., etc. Anyway, so moving on to food. I mean, also, actually, my second favorite cuisine in the world is actually Japanese food. And that's just because it's based off of simplicity, artistic interpretation, and all that jazz. Anyway, I spent way too much time talking about food there. So, the point is, though, the Democrats, their plan really is, oh, come on over, we're going to decriminalize crossing the border and setting up residence in the United States. That's called amnesty, folks. Now, here's the thing. Again, I'm all in favor of immigration. I think that people, you know, should come to the United States if they think it's the best thing for them and their families. You know, that's what this nation was built upon. At the same time, I think it's the responsibility of the United States government to properly vet people coming in and trying to become Americans. You know, that's why we had Ellis Island in the first place. And I know that's just one port of entry, but my point remains. But on top of that, they want to give welfare to all of these people. They want to give, and I'll at least give them credit where credit's due. They want to give these plans to American citizens as well. And we're talking, you know, tuition-free college. Notice I'm not saying free college because somebody is paying for it, whether or not the Democrats actually want to admit that or not. And chances are it will be the middle class, because once you go to college, your earning potential does increase, and therefore you're going to be making more, which means you're going to be subject to more taxes. Therefore, you are going to be paying for a plan that is supposedly free. I know it sounds roundabout and that, oh, it's free, when I actually get it. Well, that's the way it is now. Government actually is paying for your college anyway, unless you were paying it out of pocket, like, my family did for me and my actually, government paid for my little brother, or is it paying for my little brother, though he also has athletic endorsements for bullshit reasons. I'm just kidding. Dive is a real sport. No, it's not. Oh, man. Taking the piss out of my brother. Anyway. No, he's getting a GI Bill from my mom. But anyway, enough about, that stuff. The point is, somebody has to pay for something. That's rule number one. That's rule number one of economics. You learn that day one, minute one in any economics course you will take. As a matter of fact, it's taught. It's Economics 101, and it's repeated so often that the idea that anyone could conflate the idea of the person who's benefiting isn't paying directly with free is ludicrous. When you get a buy one get one free deal at, say, I don't know, Popeyes, because I'm probably going to eat Popeyes for dinner tomorrow. Maybe Zaxby's or Arby's. But the point is, a buy one get one free deal is actually just buy one get one at the expense of the company. Or a two for the price of one, right? Somebody has to pay because resources are expended, labor is used, and administrative fees, taxes, business expenses, marketing, overhead, yada, yada, yada. You get the point. Anyway, there was a lot of Trump bashing, and it's honestly getting old. And when I say it's getting old, I mean it's getting old. It's getting to the point where it's kind of like, and I was sort of guilty of this way back then, before senior year of high school, which, I mean, I could vote in 2012, but it was, and I'm kind of guilty of this too. The Trump bashing is kind of getting to like the way the GOP was with Obama. It's old, it's ridiculous, and it's time for them to move on and actually start trying to solve solutions other than Orange Man bad. The other thing is the governors seem to perform much better. I'm talking Steve Bullock. He's really the only governor there. But Hickenlooper did too, though he was a bit cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But, that's Hickenlooper. I think we're all used to it. But even Bullock went off the deep end a few times. Tim Ryan had a lot of problems, I noticed. Being a Trump country Democrat, and that his district was won by Trump by, I think, 20 points or something like that. So he had to contend with the fact that his voters are also Trump voters. So he has to be careful with what he says. Basically, every Democrat wanted to expand the government to insane levels, if we're honest. And the one question I want to ask the Democrats is why they think healthcare is a right. And I want to actually hear this from them. Because what is a right? It means something that a person is entitled to based off of the fact that they are living and breathing. So, the right to life. Just because you exist, you have the right to continue existing. Now, it doesn't mean you have the right to artificially extend it, via, say, an iron lung or, sucking blood from babies. I don't know. Fuck it. I've been listening to a lot of metal today. Yes, Cannibal Corpse was included, but that's beside the point. And yes, I am a metalhead. Deal with it. He says he has a progressive rock poster on his bedroom wall. Do you want me to show my Slayer album? No. Anyway. No, I'm not drunk. This is only my I'm not going to answer that question. Anyway, so, but the point is, what is a right? It's something you have access to because you are alive. So you have the right to life. You have the right to liberty. And I'll get to what that means in just a second. And you have the right to property, aka the three principles of John Locke, the rights to life, liberty, and property. And that's all a government is there to do, is protect those rights, at least according to John Locke. Of course, other people have different beliefs on that whole system, but those are a good starting place on determining what is a right. Does it fit into the right to life? Does it fit into the right to liberty? And does it fit into the right to property? Believe it or not, I don't think most Democrats... No, that's... Sorry. I was about to break character. Yes, my character... No, I'm just kidding. I was about to go into a rant. But no, I don't think Sanders would consider property a right. And truth be told, the founders didn't copy John Locke directly or completely by saying the right to life, liberty, property. They said the right to, more accurately, Thomas Jefferson, after some persuasion from southern states where it was considered okay, but he changed it to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Property would be a bit of an issue to have in a founding document when half of the nation considered it perfectly okay to own a human being. And fun fact, most of the founding fathers honestly thought that slavery was on its way out because it just wasn't profitable. As a matter of fact, George Washington probably would have manumitted all of slaves if Virginia law was less restrictive on that process. No, seriously. It was so difficult to manumit slaves that Thomas Jefferson had to free one of his daughters by sending her north with orders saying that it was okay for her to go north. He couldn't even issue a bill of manumission for his own kid. People think the nation's fucked up now. Jesus fucking Christ. Anyway, so that kind of pissed me off. Guns. They immediately went there because of the shootings, and the one shooting. They tried to claim a bunch of others as mass shootings, but there was only really one. And that was that garlic festival, which pissed me off because I love garlic, and I think everybody should enjoy garlic and should eat garlic and have a garlic necklace to ward off vampires. And slightly kidding on that last part, but I love garlic. Seriously. I actually do make garlic dip that I just spoon into my mouth. I wish I was kidding, too. Maybe... I wish I was kidding. Anyway, and they all were blaming the tool, not the symptom, which is economic disparity in these communities, as well as lack of attention and proper access to mental health care. The problem is they're blaming the tool. And we actually have universal background checks. Every single time I hear a Democrat clamoring for universal background checks, I want to tell them we have them. As a gun owner, as somebody who has actually had to go through background checks multiple times, not just for my guns, but also for my concealed carry permit, we have universal background checks. The only way I can get a gun without a background check is purchasing it illegally or from a family member through either A, inheritance, which even that wouldn't be considered a straw purchase. Okay, so inheritance is the only legal way to get a gun without a background check. Or a straw purchase. You can actually get a straw purchase without going through a background check. And the way a straw purchase works is if, say, I wanted to sell a gun to my brother, I could act as a character witness for him, right? I could say, he's clean, he doesn't have a criminal record, he's a good person who isn't a domestic abuser or whatever. He doesn't have any criminal history. He is a good person who has a stable mental background. and is not going to go crazy, so it's okay for me to give him or sell him this gun, right? I can do that as a private citizen. However, if it turns out he wasn't as clean as I thought, I could then be prosecuted for not doing my due diligence. And that's if he commits a crime. Now, if he commits a crime and he was legally able to purchase the gun, well, still, I get away scot-free because, guess what? Even if he bought it at a gun store, he wouldn't have gotten caught. So the law basically says you can be a character witness to somebody. That said, you should still get a background check when applicable. Obviously. In the two cases... Now, I've actually gotten a gun through one of the two, which was inheritance. But it tragically disappeared in a boating accident. Anyway, so moving on to the next part, Democrats seem to not understand why we have firearms in this nation in the first place. So I'm going to start with a little bit of Socratic method and pause it after each question I ask, okay? So question 1 is, what is power? Now I'll give about a pause. Okay, so power is the ability to affect decisions and to affect your own personal agenda, be it political, religious, whatever, and get your way. So let's say if I had power in a family, I could tell them what I want for dinner, and that gets made. Period. End of story. That would be power within the family. Power in a neighborhood would be say, I don't know, I want a speed bump at that intersection, or at this point on the road, and have it done. That would be power. In a city or a community, I guess I'll use the city I currently live in. It's an incorporated city, but calling it a city may be generous. You know, I could say, I don't know, we'll remove all street lamps and actually get it done. Or not street lamps, but street lights, you know, red, yellow, green. You know, I could say, well, we'll get rid of those and just use stop signs. They're cheaper, you know, but get it done. You know, and if it gets done, that means I had enough power to get that done. It means I had power. In a state, it could be, say, fix those roads, fill up those potholes. If it gets done, I had power. You know, that type of thing. So if you carry that to its logical conclusion, obviously that means power means you have to have the ability to get something done. So where does power come from? Well, there are two ways. There are two ways and two means of getting power done. First, the first way you get power is through legal authority, meaning you have a legal right to demand something and have other people bend to your will. This could be through a democratic process or a Republican process. And when I say a Republican, I mean through elected representatives, obviously. Not through the Republican Party of the United States of America, the GOP. No, I'm talking about through elected representatives. So little r. The second way that you can get it is through the ability to use lethal force. And actually, hilariously, legal authority also comes from the ability to use lethal force. Therefore, the most effective tool to affect lethal force is where your power comes from. Therefore, people would probably rightfully assume that the U.S. government is the most powerful in the world because we have the most nukes. Well, the problem is we can't use those for a lot of reasons. Besides the fact that we would kill ourselves by using them. But, you know, So we'll take that off the table, and all of a sudden the balance of power becomes a lot more even in the United States, because guess who has the best weapons in the United States, or more accurately, who has the ability to effect lethal force in the United States? If you answer the government, yeah, you're correct. But if you answered the people, aka the citizens, you're also correct. And actually, you're more correct if you answer the citizens. And the reason why is because, well, let's be honest, there are more guns in civilian hands in the United States than there are civilians. In addition, they're also probably much higher quality, as far as I can tell, because, well, governments have to go to low, they have to pay the lowest bidder, meaning craftsmanship and quality might be a bit suspect. Whereas a civilian, if they say, I want the highest quality, they're going to get the highest quality, especially if they do their own research and say, like I did, build my own AR. That's just the way it works. And trust me, that thing works beautifully. But no, my point is, the people of the United States are the ones who have the power, because we have the ability to enact and use lethal force, whereas our government doesn't have the ability to do the same to us. Meaning, if the government doesn't represent us, worse comes to worse, and if we can't kick them out through legal means, aka voting, etc., 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 worse comes to worse, we could overthrow our own government. You can't say the same about the Brits. You can't say the same about the French. You can't say the same about the Germans. You can't say the same about the Japanese. And I could go on and on and on and on. You can't say the same about the Russians. And to those who are saying, oh, come on, you were so paranoid, the government will wipe your face off the earth if you revolted. Well, not so true. Tell that to terrorist organizations in the Middle East. Tell that to Al-Qaeda. Tell that to the Taliban. Tell that to ISIS. Yes, drone strikes and bombing runs, they work. But the problem is, the damage inflicted is so minimal that it's not effective in the long run. Conventional militaries have an impossible task when facing a guerrilla force, like what would happen in the case of a revolution. So therefore, in the United States, the people have the advantage. And the truth is, most military members would defect to the side of the people if there was a revolt. So the reality is, the Americans, the United States of America, is the only nation on earth where the people have the power. Every other nation, the answer is the military. In the United States, it's the people. So, tell me why we should all of a sudden be giving our power away to the military, and to the government, and to the capricious whims of our elected leaders who have a penchant for going to war even though there's no goddamn fucking reason to do so. Ask Woodrow Wilson if we had a reason to go into World War I. At least FDR had a reason to go to war with Japan, maybe not Germany, but, fuck it. They were allies, so may as well. Do we have a reason to go to Vietnam? No. Korea? No. Afghanistan? No. Iraq? Not really. Truth is, if that's the way we treat foreign nations, what's going to happen when the government deems you, the American citizen, a threat? And they keep saying that the National Rifle Association, the NRA, is an enemy. It's not. They're trying to paint them as domestic terrorists, for Christ's sake, which is just fucking ridiculous. That's banning free speech. They're advocating a political issue based off of the merits of the issue. and Democrats are trying to portray them as some sort of group that wants to murder toddlers and shove candy up ladies' bums. And they're also all advocating for an AWB, assault weapons ban, based off of the idea that there's no good legal use for an AR or an AK or, whatever. When in fact there are. Look up 3-gun competitions, look up target shooting, and look up hunting. Yes, an AR is perfectly reasonable for hunting. Sure, it maybe has more ammunition than you'll ever need to kill a deer, but it's the modern choice for a hunting rifle. I still prefer 30-30 for various reasons, and I've probably covered it before. But an AR ban is not actually a good policy, or an assault weapons ban. In addition, they're trying to claim that their ideas are supported by a majority of the people, but, if you're having to claim that your idea is popular, it's probably not as popular as you think it is. Anyway, the reason why they're not a good policy is because if you actually want to look at the homicide rate and the crime rate and the effect of gun control on homicides, crime, and non-homicide death, the numbers are abysmally shit. It's really bad, actually. Australia, when they had their mandatory buybacks, which, while mandatory, were not exactly complied with, the UN estimated maybe 30% of the population complied. That should tell you something. Because that's Australia. In America, you'd maybe get 10% of the population who has guns actually, handing them in for whatever the government was offering. So, no, it's not going to happen. But you look at the 2 mass shootings that happened during the last time we had an AWB, and you realize one of them wasn't committed with an assault weapon. It was actually committed with handguns, and that was Virginia Tech. And considering I live a stone's throw away from Virginia Tech. I was about to say literally, but I don't actually live literally a stone's throw away from Virginia Tech. A little bit further away than that. And Columbine, which was committed with a rifle which even under current Democratic restrictions wouldn't qualify as an assault weapon. What the fuck are they banning? Apologies for the language, but seriously, it wouldn't do jack shit. So, I'm skeptical of their gun policies because it seems like blaming the tool over the root causes, which are economic and psychological. And also media related, because the media will report nonstop on a mass shooting, despite it encouraging people who are lonely or think they haven't gotten enough attention from mommy or daddy or both. Anyway, moving on to some of the next points that they talked about. Yeah, Bullock is a snake in the grass. The problem with American society, yeah, and I had a few more points to cover. For example, 2/3 of all gun deaths, which is 30,000, not the 40 grand that O'Rourke tried to claim it was. 2/3 of which are suicides, and 60% of the remaining 10,000 are gang-related / crimes of passion, meaning that you're not going to stop them with gun control. So that's another 6K that you're not going to stop. By the way, in Australia and other nations that banned firearms, the suicide numbers didn't decrease. They just stopped shooting themselves and started hanging themselves. And in the UK, and I'm going to assume in other nations that banned firearms, people stopped shooting each other and started stabbing each other. So, to the point where the UK is actually considering knife control. Yeah. Gun control was so effective that you have to start banning the next most effective tool to murder someone. Fucking retards. Wait, that's an insult to anyone with mental illnesses, because people with mental illnesses are more intelligent. Oh, yes, I think Buttigieg supported DC statehood. Does he... To the people who actually support DC statehood, why do you think that's a good idea to put the federal government under jurisdiction of a state? That's the whole reason why the District of Columbia is not in a state. It's a federal district meant to house the federal government. It is not meant to house a state government as well. If you want the people of the District of Columbia to be represented in Congress, that's fine. Move the residential areas to Maryland. They'll be perfectly represented since that's what DC agrees with. So, anyway, Williamson actually made a good point at once, and I started questioning if I had had too much to drink, but then I realized she actually did make a good point. I forget where it was and what it was about, but it was a good point. And there were some people who, Hickenlooper notably, speak of the devil, he was on the screen. He was complaining about how far left the Democratic Party was going. Same thing with Tim Ryan to a degree and John Delaney to a degree. They were arguing for pragmatism and slowly getting to the agendas of, say, a Bernie Sanders, an Elizabeth Warren, a Kamala Harris. And Hickenlooper tried to present himself as the voice of, quote, reason. And he did an interesting job at that. I don't think he was 100% successful. As a matter of fact, most of these candidates seem to point to, oh, you should probably wait till tomorrow or just vote for Trump. I don't think Sanders... Moving on to the next note I took when they were discussing, again, more healthcare stuff. And also minimum wage. I don't think Bernie Sanders actually understands economics. You know, this debate cycle and this presidential cycle has drastically dropped my level of respect for him. I'd still love to have a beer with him, or I guess a bourbon, considering, you know, what's on my table tonight, or what's on my office desk tonight. But I don't think Sanders actually understands economics, because he thinks that increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour would solve everything regarded to, you know, with regards to cost of living, whatever. The problem is the law of supply and demand is going to cause something. And maybe I'll go into this in depth. But basically, what we have now is a relative equilibrium. It's not perfect, but it's close enough, and it hovers around the price of the federal minimum plus about 50 or 60 cents an hour for labor. And currently, what we have is a price floor on labor. And what that means is that the government has instituted a price that for labor that you cannot pay under. And all price floor means is that if it's under the equilibrium, it doesn't matter. Because the equilibrium is higher than the price floor, meaning that the equilibrium, it will, you know, the price for whatever good or service you're going to have is going to hover around the equilibrium price, which is above the price floor, meaning the price floor doesn't actually change anything. It's just kind of there for moral reasons, you know, for a moral victory. But if you put the price floor above the equilibrium price, all of a sudden you're going to have a surplus of labor, meaning businesses aren't going to hire as many people, and chances are they're going to have to cut wages. As a matter of fact, Sanders had to experience this himself when he relented to pressure to pay his staff $15 an hour, like he was saying that the federal minimum should be. He said he was going to have to cut hours or cut jobs in order to pay the wages. You gotta love it when basic economics catches up with people who are making pie in the sky, promises that are just not gonna happen. I love to see reality smack idiots in the face, and that includes Donald Trump at some points, because his criticisms of the freshman Democratic senators, I guess they're called the Squad. I don't know. I don't care. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Representative Omar, and the other two. I just can't remember their names right now, given that I've probably had about 5 shots of bourbon, and no, that's not an exact figure, that's an estimate. And by the way, I am scripted, aka I have notes, but they are horribly written, so forgive me. But yeah, the governors perform better than mayors or former mayors, aka Bernie Sanders, as well as they perform better than the senators who were just kind of sitting there trying to act. Well, Warren kind of fell into the Marco Rubio trap of repeating the same line over and over and over again. In Rubio's case, it was the famous, let's dispel with this rumor that President Obama does not know what he's doing. He knows exactly what he is doing. Warren had her Marco Rubio moment by saying stuff along the lines of, well, this is what we believe, and the corporations are sucking billions of dollars from the healthcare system. It's just fucking ridiculous. Tim Ryan actually had oh my god, he had the line of the night by saying Hillary Clinton led in the polls too, when Bernie Sanders tried to claim that he was better than any other Democrat because he was beating Trump in every poll that he had seen. And Tim Ryan was like, and so did Hillary Clinton. And that just won it for me. I mean, Tim Ryan, that was kind of one of those moments where if I can find the link, maybe I'll play it. But it's the one where the kid just goes, and everybody else is like, oh. I know my memes. But everybody gave the same freaking answer every single time. Klobuchar, my reaction of her is she is too Minnesota nice in order to win the primary, let alone general. Her problem is she doesn't want to step on too many toes because she wants to make sure that everybody is accounted for and as everybody is, welcome at the table. And, I'm kind of that way, but at the same time, I'm not afraid to speak my mind if it's relevant. Now, Delaney had an interesting answer when it came to the climate change question that was posed, which was that he wanted private and public sectors to work together as much as possible, and specifically the public sector to invest in the private sector, as in the government investing in private sector corporations and businesses that are invested in green technology, aka carbon neutral energy, carbon cleaning services, etc., etc. I actually thought that was interesting because if I did ever run for office, one of the things I would do is maybe this is because of the values of both my mama and my papa instilled in myself, is that you should lead through example. Meaning, I would try and say, well, sure, we can encourage people to invest and use green technology, but what we really need to do is do it ourselves. That way people are like, oh shit, if it's good enough for the feds, it's good enough for us. Because in a lot of industries, government spec or military spec is considered the gold standard, especially in the firearms industry. Oh my god, everything is advertised as mil spec, which is not necessarily a good thing. But whatever. The point is that, leading by example is what you should be doing. And that's exactly what leadership is leading by example. Anyone who says leadership is anything other than that needs to have whatever rhetoric they've been force-fed, shoved up their ass. Anyway, a lot of people were talking about electric vehicles because, of course, it's Detroit. You got to talk the automotive industry, aka Chevrolet, Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, and the companies that are subsidiaries of all of those. And they were talking about electric vehicles. And don't get me wrong, I love electric vehicles. And I'm not kidding when I say that. I think electric vehicles are the wave of the future, especially when it comes to performance. They may not be perfect at straight line speed, but if you get the arrow right, they'll be fine in the corners, and electric vehicles are second to none when it comes to acceleration. As a matter of fact, the new Tesla Roadster is said to get to 60 in under 2 seconds. That is fucking insane. You would have been laughed out of the room 5 years ago for suggesting that might be possible. I want a new Tesla Roadster. Not because it's electric or anything, but because the performance is insane. Of course, I also want the mid-engine Corvette. I want a Pagani Zonda. I want a Koenigsegg Jesko. I'm a car person. I love cars. I especially love high-end performance vehicles. I could probably afford it now, but, I want to be responsible with my money, especially considering I may be dating, but anyway. Yeah, so Bernie Sanders complained about the GOP bailing out Wall Street, but he forgets that 95% of his own party, or at least 95% of the Democratic Party, also bailed out Wall Street in 2008. So he's kind of shooting himself in the foot with that comment, at least in terms of Democratic responses. But, that's none of my business. And actually, my notes are kind of illegible at this point. Someone, I think it was Hickenlooper, mentioned an urbanized nation. And as someone who lives in a rural area, when I say a rural area, I live in an incorporated city that has an official population of maybe 10,000, but is closer to 5. And once I leave the incorporated city, it's so rural it doesn't even... I could honestly see the wisps of the Milky Way galaxy if I went out to the interstate. That's how rural I am and where I live. So that's kind of an insulting and worrisome comment from Hickenlooper, that he wants to make policy for an urbanized nation. It means that he doesn't give a fuck about us who live in rural areas. So they talked about Baltimore, they talked about other places, and I think at some point looking at my notes, I think this is exactly what it says. I'm fucking done with all of them. Fuck them. And that basically sums up my lunacy. And yeah, I admit it. I'm not perfect. I'm not all-knowing. I don't know everything. I don't care about that, though. And the thing is, I love this nation. I love the United States of America. And I think we deserve the best leaders. And I think we deserve people who actually know what the fuck they're talking about. The only person who showed demonstrable knowledge of the system, as well as pragmatism, as well as bold ideas, as well as a willingness to work with others, there were two. Pete Buttigieg of South Bend, Indiana, and John Hickenlooper of Colorado. Those were the only two who really made me think, hey, I could live in a nation governed at the very highest level by those two. And even then, I would disagree with them and I would vote against them. In this debate, given the fact that tomorrow night's debate is going to be basically the exact same thing, Jesus fuck, I'm getting fucked up. Given all of that, I probably won't vote Democratic ever again. And I have actually voted for Democrats before. At the local level. And even at the state level. I voted in I've been eligible to vote in 2 states. Georgia and Virginia. Georgia, I could actually vote in 2012. And I didn't vote straight ticket. I voted Johnson at the top. I think, if I remember correctly, I voted for Republican for representative. I voted for a Democrat at city level. At county level, I don't remember what I did. But the point is, I evaluate candidates based off of their candidacy and their qualifications. But the problem is the Democrats are going to Europe levels of left wing. And that's just too far for me. Admittedly, look at my channel fucking logo. Look at my avatar. It's a libertarian party. And that's the American libertarian, meaning we love our free markets, but we also love our civil liberties. That should tell you what I stand for and what I believe. I can live under a President Obama. He's moderate enough that it doesn't fucking matter. I can live under a Bill Clinton. He's actually somewhat conservative compared to today's slate. I could live under a Jimmy Carter, mostly because he's from Georgia, just like myself. I could live under a John Fitzgerald Kennedy, because he was an intelligent man who is not going to let American interests be overrun by fucking communists. And listen, I believe in free speech for everyone. If you're a communist, please, I'll share a beer with you. I'll pay for the fucking beer. But I also disagree with you. I want you to know that. But I'm willing to hear your side of the story. I'm willing to hear why you believe that. I'm willing to hear everything. I'm a free speecher above all else. And that includes my belief in the right to keep and bear arms. I believe in free expression. If you have something to say, I want to hear it. Anyway, before this gets too long, I'm going to go ahead and end this story. Because, fuck, I just looked at the stuff on OBS and I'm at 55 minutes. I think part of that's because I maybe did actually have a bit too much to drink by the time I started recording this, but fuck it. Angel's Envy is too good. So, anyway, I want to thank you all for watching. I want to say, have a nice evening. Enjoy yourselves tomorrow. And, please, for the love of God, watch this and seriously consider everyone. And that includes Donald Trump, any independents, any third-party candidates, any Democratic candidate. I want you to go out there and make the best decision for you. And that means you yourself, whoever you are, whether you're white, black, Asian, Hispanic, Latino, I guess that means Hispanic, whatever. As if I care. Christian, Jewish, Muslim, I don't give a fuck. Make sure that you've done the right thing by you. And make sure that you have done what you think is honestly best for the nation. I'd rather lose than see someone vote for what I agree with because I said so. Or because someone I agree with said so. I think that your opinion matters. And you should express that. That means go out and fucking vote. Anyway, take it easy, y'all. Have a nice evening. Have a nice evening. Have a nice evening. And I'm going to go finish my drink and get some rest. Take it easy, y'all. Bye.